The Super Bowl special continues. Sam Fetterman here. We now have the second of the How They Got There segments featuring the Super Bowl finalists and my co-host for the entire Super Bowl show, Michael Filipkowski.
Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be back.
Did it last year with me, and
That was
now,
that was a marathon, was it not, Sam?
yeah, that was a good one. Obviously, at the end of this show, the end of the entire Super Bowl special, you'll get game picks. Not only,
I think at least for you, I
yeah,
think we're definitely a little bit more organized this year, Sam, than we
our
were
guests
last year.
and we will have a guest for every segment. And if you don't already follow Elite Takes on TikTok, I don't know what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Nico is here, and we're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they came an incredible turnaround from last season. But we start with a trivia question. Who is the Bucs' longest tenured player?
Current or all time?
Current. Is he current?
That's on the active roster.
It's on the active roster.
Ooh. Levante David?
That is correct.
That's who I thought it was as well. I was thinking.
Levante David is the longest tenured Tampa Bay Buccaneer. And for Levante David, it's surreal because he's been with this Bucs team now for so many years, and they never even made the playoffs. And they go out and in 2000 and before last season, they lure Bruce Arians out of retirement. Mm-hmm. A guy who in his last two seasons went 7-8-1 and then 8-8. And then what does he do in 2019? He goes 7-9.
Yeah.
Because of course. And he had to deal with Jameis Winston and his
30 for 30 season.
30 for 30.
Yeah, and his 4.8 interception percentage.
Excellent quarterback.
I've been a guy that Jameis probably is one of the 32 best quarterbacks on the planet, but after what he did last season, I wouldn't be comfortable starting him this season. And the Bucs realized that because he was a pending free agent, they decided not to pay him, and they decided to go and make their move. They felt like they had a roster that was complete enough that they could compete for a championship pretty much right away with the right quarterback. And in 2020, quarterback free agency was crazy. You had technically Drew Brees as a free agent. You had Phillip Rivers. You had Teddy Bridgewater.
Mm-hmm.
And you also had 3 quarterbacks that were going to be top 10 draft picks this year, as well as the guy that the Bucs did eventually go after,
the GOAT,
in the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady,
undisputed.
And they bring him in, and what you do with Tom Brady, we've mentioned this before, is you change the entire culture of the locker room.
Truly, it's insane.
And
it's insane.
This is a Bucs team that last season, their defense was put in a lot of really tough situations. They were 29th in average drive start, on defense. So that was pretty bad. That's on the offense for not letting them.
Right, it's offense and
because they were number 6. They were the 6th best team in yards allowed per drive, but they were 17th best in points per drive because their offense put them in situations where they would often be in their own territory already.
In trouble.
Yeah, and they allowed a lot of points. They allowed 449 points. They were the 3rd best offense in the league by points, but they also then allowed 449 points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
Which was
The
And
Bucs
for a
last
7-9
year.
football team, you look at their defense,
Yeah.
and we saw there was a lot of talent, a lot of athletes. Levante David, Devin White as a young player last season and still a young player right now. Shaq Barrett had 19 and a half sacks last season.
Vita Vea,
Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, JPP, and then this season they feel, you know what, if we can solve the quarterback issue, we can compete. They solved the quarterback issue, and they got locker room culture out of it, as well as having a. I mean, they had a phenomenal draft.
Right. And when you look at Tampa Bay, right, and you go from last season to this season, they drafted really, really well. Antoine Winfield
They drafted Tristan Wirfs in the first round, Tristan Wirfs is already
Tristan Wirfs and Onwenu are 1 and 2.
Tristan Wirfs is already a top 6-7 right tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, he is absolutely incredible.
He was one of the top 3 right tackles in the league this season.
Yeah.
And then they bring in Antoine Winfield, who has struggled down the stretch, but he's had some really good.
But he's a young player too. He's still got a lot of room to grow.
And Tyler Johnson, who's a contributor for this team.
Tyler Johnson, who's a contributor, and the only reason I don't think he's a bigger focal point is for 2 reasons, right? Number one, he's a rookie on a team when you have Mike Evans, Godwin, Gronk, and Antonio Brown, right? So he's kind of like, there's already so many guys on the field anyways.
And the Bucs basically then turned into Last Chance Saloon when they brought in Rob Gronkowski, Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown.
No, they did, and a big part of that I think is Brady, right? Brady bringing in these guys, and what I have to say
and I think LaShawn McCoy is also on their roster.
He is.
He is there.
Is he on the active roster though?
I think it's either him or Keyshawn Vaughn. I don't know if it's
Vaughn.
Both of them.
It's Vaughn. I saw Vaughn in a few games in the playoffs.
Vaughn is on the active roster. By the way, LaShawn McCoy I think can become the first player to win back-to-back Super Bowls as healthy scratches with 2 different teams.
Yeah, the Bucs. It's really a story of a culture change. But when we go back to the beginning of the season, Week 1 when they played the Saints, this was the first game that Brady had played under a Bruce Arians system.
It was the first game Tom Brady played that wasn't for Bill Belichick,
right?
Since the Orange
Bowl,
since literally I think December 31st, 1999.
Right. Since college. And what I have to say is, early on the season, this team struggled a lot between, is this going to be a more
January 1st, 2000.
Right. Is this going to be more of a Brady run offense and a Brady styled offense, or more of a Bruce Arians style offense? And we saw a lot of that clash early on in the season when they didn't have an offseason prepare, right? That's why a guy like Tyler Johnson isn't probably as developed with Brady as he would have been, because they didn't have that offseason where Brady would have worked out with him and they would have been able to have tons of reps together. But now we're seeing over the progression of the season how much time Brady has had to not only work with these receivers, Evans, Godwin, there's a lot more trust there, and you can see that just by the eye test. But how much of an effect Brady has in this offense, just him, right? And Bruce Arians has come out and said it multiple times, this is Brady's offense. This is what he wanted. And we've seen a lot more of what he's used to and what he wants, and that's what wins, right? And we understand now, and I think this is apparent, that why the Patriots won for so many years, a huge part of that was Brady and the way that he ran his offense. And that,
it's the way that Tom Brady and Bill Belichick work together and they literally just have the same exact mindset of how to keep yourself disciplined, how to keep yourself performing at peak level. That's what made them such a perfect match.
Mm-hmm. Of course. This is 100% correct. And I think Tampa Bay this season, it's been slightly a roller coaster, right? We've seen moments where they've been at their best. When they beat Green Bay 38-10 early on in the season, everyone looked at it and that's okay, this team could be scary. But when they lost to the Saints in the second time they played them, everyone was hopped off the wagon because it looked like this team was falling apart.
I remember that day before that game, I said that the Bucs were going to. I had the Bucs winning that game, and I also was at the time saying the Bucs could go and win the Super Bowl. And then that game they got shellacked, 38-3. It was ugly. They had 19 minutes of possession. They had 20 minutes of possession in that entire game.
Mm-hmm.
They had a 37.8 team passer rating, which means that if instead of throwing the ball, they just spiked it on every single one of their pass attempts, they would have had a higher passer rating.
Wow.
And they also had only 5 rushing attempts in the whole game. So they were 1 of 9 on third, 0 of 3 on fourth. The Saints controlled the ball in that game. They passed really efficiently. The Saints didn't even run efficiently. They just ran a lot and ran the clock and scored 38 points. And at that point, the Bucs, who had gotten away with one against the Giants on Monday night, were looking weak.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get Carolina and an offensive performance that is just so Tom Brady after a loss.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't Tom Brady doesn't lose back-to-back very often.
No.
In this game against the Bucs, in this game against the Panthers, he went out and threw for 3 touchdowns and 341 yards. And Ronald Jones,
games all year.
And Ronald Jones had a 98-yard rushing touchdown.
Right. I think the biggest thing about the Bucs this season was how much they've grown as a team since last season. Because largely it's the same team. Like, they've added pieces, of course. Guys have gotten injured. New guys have come in. But most generally, it's been the same team outside of a few players. And the one that comes to mind is Brady. And Tampa's, give credit to their drafting and to their GM, their front office, because they've done a really nice job.
They ended up getting, I believe, the 3rd tackle off the board, and he's been the best out of the first round.
He's been the best out of them. I mean, they've just
best out of the first round tackles.
Right. I mean, looking at it now, they have Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, 2 running backs who I consider to be number 1 running backs in the NFL, and they're both on the same team, right? And
when you have two guys that can pound the rock, and you have an offensive line that is as stacked as the Bucs is, I wouldn't even say it's like that stacked. I'd say it's just 5 solid pieces. Sorry, like 3 very solid pieces and 2 very high level pieces in Wirfs and Marpet. And then Donovan Smith is very solid. Alex Kappa is very solid. Ryan Jensen's very solid. And you just look at the team and you see, the Bucs, they have a solid team. Everything on this team is solid, and they don't have anything that they are not good at except for really special teams. That's really it.
Yeah, and even special teams, when we look at their kicking problems, they've been.
Well, no, I'm not talking about kicking. They're 26th in special teams.
Well, I know, in punting, but kicking has been a big thing for them over the past.
Not just punting and in coverage and in.
Well, yes, but kicking is a part of special teams, and when we go back to the immense problems that have been had in Tampa Bay, right? We have Roberto Aguayo. We've had in Tampa Bay.
By the way, Patriots legend Roberto Aguayo.
We've had in Tampa Bay, countless problems with kicking over the years. Like, you can name it, they've missed plenty of kicks. What Matt?
Nick Folk, I believe another Patriots legend.
Nick Folk,
right? I believe the kicker this year, or is it Suckup? That's who it is.
Yeah.
Unsung hero. He's done an incredible job in the playoffs. He made a huge kick against Green Bay last week or 2 weeks ago. He's really nailed down that kicking position, which has been up in the air for a long time. Tampa got here
28 of 31 this season.
Yeah,
and that is a 90% clip.
Yeah, they've got here.
He hasn't missed from inside. He has not missed from inside 40
yet this year. Hopefully, he doesn't. All he has to do is keep that streak tomorrow.
Well, he has missed 5 extra points, which is ridiculous.
Right,
but he's attempted 57.
Yeah. So look, Tampa got here by building a really good roster, and then realizing that to win a Super Bowl in the NFL today, and I was talking about this last night, I've talked about it extensively, right? To win a Super Bowl, it takes more than just a great team. You need a great quarterback. Because great quarterbacks is the difference between winning a Super Bowl and overthrowing your receiver 7 yards in the end zone, right? That's the difference. That's what we saw last year. The difference between Jimmy G and Patrick Mahomes was able to turn it on in the fourth quarter, and Jimmy
G just didn't.
And when we look at this year, when we look at the Bucs, last year, Jameis threw 30 interceptions in the regular season. Brady this year threw 12. So that means there's
12 interceptions. 12 interceptions is not a small number of interceptions.
It's not.
No,
especially in the 2020 season where the league leader in interceptions threw 15.
Right. It's not a small number, but I'm saying relative to what happened last year, you got a guy.
But also he protected the ball well in the percentage department because he also threw the ball 610 times.
Right. You also threw 10 more touchdowns. Right. Tampa got here.
7 because Winston had 33.
Oh yeah, 33. My bad. But at the end of the day, Tampa got here it was a roller coaster season. It was up and down throughout the entire way. And it felt like at the very end, in the month of December and the month of
I was going to get into that in a moment. But what you're trying to get at is the easiest way in the NFL to get more wins is to increase the productivity of the quarterback position.
Mm-hmm.
But that month of December,
was incredible.
That month of December, after losing back-to-back 27-24 games against playoff teams, including Kansas City, the Bucs on December 13th, from December 13th, December 20th, December 26th, and January 3rd, played amazing football.
It was some of the greatest complementary football that we've seen all season.
It was
defense and offense.
Their passing offense had 9 net yards per attempt and a 126 passer rating. And they weren't even running the ball that well. They were running the ball for 4 yards per attempt, flat.
And what I think was,
but then you look at what they were able to do on defense in those games, where they held their opponents to 5 net yards per pass attempt, and they held their opponents to a horrible third down conversion percentage.
Mm.
And then even when they only controlled possession in 2 of those 4 games, they were able to win the other 2. And then in the playoffs, it's just been, by the way, this Tom Brady in the Green Bay Packers game, he outplayed Aaron Rodgers. He did. 3 interceptions. Even with the 3 interceptions, he outplayed Aaron Rodgers.
Only one of them was his fault. So.
And that's not even why. That's not even why.
That's not even why. No. And the reason why, from my perspective, is Tom Brady outplayed Aaron Rodgers.
Tom Brady had 0.28 EPA per play and an average depth of target of 12 yards, while Rodgers had a 0.13 EPA per play and a 6.7 average depth of target.
But for me, obviously, Sam's a huge stats guy. I'm more of a
if you watch the whole game and not just the interceptions, you realize that Brady did outplay Rodgers.
Right. But I think what was most telling was that Brady is good when it counts. He is at his best when it counts. Rodgers had not 1, but 2 drives off an interception where he could have, I believe, taken the lead, right? He had 2 drives.
Yes, he could have.
And what happened? The team felt like it was an away game. It was in the cold. Everything was set up for Brady to lose, right? You got a Tampa Bay team, which, they already beat the Packers this season, and now they're coming into Green Bay. They're coming to Lambeau. It's freezing. It's cold. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they're nervous. They're not catching the ball as well. Everything was set
Chris
up.
Godwin goes up and makes this ridiculous
unbelievable catch. Unbelievable.
Right.
And Kevin King, by the way, is now a dead man.
He is, but, he obviously didn't play a great game.
By the way, he's now a free agent. That is
he's not going to get re-signed by the Packers. But
so
just going to that game, it's not his fault.
He was actually actually had a really solid season. He probably lost like 33% of his next AAV just by how badly he played in that one game. But it's not Kevin King's
fault. He's put in single cut, like he's put man on man when it's going to be a Hail Mary. Like it's not his fault. It's not on him, right?
It's not. But the whole that. By the way, in the NFL Awards of the Season show, which will be later in the
day.
Yes, later in this day, you will get a play of the year that will be featured in the nominees.
Yeah,
the Scotty Miller Hail Mary.
Now, Nico, like obviously Sam and I are huge Pats fans and by proxy huge Brady fans. Tell us your perspective on what it's been like to see Brady go down to Tampa Bay.
No, well, we already talked about Tom Brady.
But I'm just saying, we're talking about how Tampa got here. Like that's like what.
And what I want to talk about now is the defense in Tampa.
All right.
And Nico, something that for the pretty much entire offseason I was saying is I'm not convinced about this Tampa defense. I'm not convinced about this Tampa defense because I was not super high on Shaq Barrett. I didn't really think he would come back and have the similar season as he did last year. He didn't put up the sack numbers, but he still had 77 pressures, which was pretty damn good. And I was not fully sold on their secondary. And I was not fully sold on I was just not fully sold on their defense as a whole. And they come out this season and they just completely prove me wrong. They finish 5th in defense DVOA. They finish 5th in defense EPA. They have the best run defense in the NFL. And their secondary comes out and performs.
And I think,
and they're able to do this because they are A, well coached by Todd Bowles, and B, they are athletes.
They get around the field very quickly, and I think one of the biggest things of how this defense took that next step and, like you said, proved you wrong was the improvement in that secondary. Obviously, Antoine Winfield gave them a huge boost through most of the year.
I think that the main piece that needs to be discussed more in how this secondary just started to perform so much better is the improvement in Jamel Dean.
Yes.
And Carlton Davis is great as well.
And Sean Murphy-Bunting.
Sean Murphy-Bunting
makes his plays. He makes
Sean Murphy-Bunting was horrible the entire regular season. And then just all of a sudden picked in 3 consecutive playoff games.
Yeah,
played incredible in that Saints game.
Yeah, and Devin White, a guy that, again, I think is very overrated, but he has been very good in the playoffs. He's missed a bunch of plays, had a bunch of mistakes, but when it comes to Devin White, at this point, what he is a big time playmaker that's going to get around the field, and he's going to make plays.
He's incredibly fast.
He's going to have his name called on the broadcast a lot because he makes plays.
Yeah, Tony Romo and Jim Nantz, by the way.
And he's going to miss plays. We know that he's going to miss plays. And Levante David, he's not going to miss those plays, though. One of the most reliable guys in the league over the last pretty much an entire decade, Levante David. And never got the respect he deserves until this year. And now everyone's starting to talk about it. That's really what happens. That's what happens when your team starts to win and goes to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, you look at this Bucs team, nobody ever talked about Mike Evans.
Not really, no.
Literally, nobody talked about Mike Evans. Nobody talked about Levante David. And now, you're hearing a lot about these guys because
they're in the spotlight.
Yeah, they're in the spotlight. You make one big move with the quarterback position, and boom, now you're a team that you're in the Super Bowl.
Now you're in the Super Bowl, you can win it.
Absolutely.
Obviously, if Alex Kappa doesn't play there, they have Aaron Stinney. But I think that Stinney, he had a couple rough plays against the Packers, but they still have a solid line even with Stinney instead of Kappa. Kappa's probably the worst player on that line, to be honest with you. He's not a bad player though; he's very solid. And you look at Tampa, what we see: Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. Bruce Arians kept throwing Tom Brady under the bus pretty much the whole season. Tom Brady isn't used to he's used to his coach giving him crap. He's not used to his coach literally going out and pretty much blaming him for everything to the media.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how that felt for Tom Brady. I don't think he feels anything. I don't think he has human emotion.
Can we? I think
he's a cyborg.
I think the one last thing that I would say before, with how they got there here at Tampa, obviously we have to give a lot of credit to Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles as well. They've been an integral part of this Tampa Bay team.
Without a doubt.
And Todd Bowles has done an extremely nice job with the defense this year.
And again, Jason Licht, he did a phenomenal job this year. The Glazer family, I'm sorry, you're not going to get me to praise the Glazer family. It's not happening. It's not happening.
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay, they really built a really, really good team.
Really,
and they will also be the first team to play a Super Bowl in their home stadium.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be crazy.
Nico, do you have any final thoughts before I drive us out?
Well, I just think that you have to give everyone on that team, the staff, the coaching, the front office, credit for building such a complete team that doesn't have many flaws, and they just put it all together and started playing together, and they knew what they needed. They knew that Tom Brady needed to take the front seat in this, and they trusted the process, and it all came together when it mattered. Here they are.
All right, here's my closing bit that I was thinking about. For a decade plus, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a laughingstock in the NFL. They picked in the top half of the NFL draft pretty much every season.
They have the worst all-time record of any team.
Hold on. Yes, they are the worst team by winning percentage of all time. And they obviously did win the Super Bowl back in 2002. But picking in the high end of the first round for pretty much a decade now, picking in the high end of every round gives you a lot of talent. Not really had superstars gives you the ability to go out and pay guys in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with the Bucs is they took advantage of what was given to them. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers did not try to force something that they didn't have. If a team went out and got Tom Brady that didn't have if the Chargers had went out and gotten Tom Brady, would Tom Brady have performed and brought the Chargers to the Super Bowl? No, because they don't have the defense, they don't have the offensive line,
or the coaching.
They don't have the coaching, no.
Yes, and they don't have the special, and they don't have special teams at all, pretty much. I'm pretty sure they literally play
the Money Badger.
And then you look at Tampa, they knew that in order for them to win, they had this window, they had this opportunity, and they were presented with the opportunity to make that window immediate and make it a lot more surefire than they'd expected.
Oh, yeah.
Because because there isn't much of a chance that you're going to find a quarterback that's going to play the way Tom Brady does. It's going to elevate your team. Because they recognize that their flaw was the quarterback position. And what they went out and did is they went out and got the greatest of all time.
Yep.
And it paid off huge for them. The culture is actually very damn good there.
The culture
is
pretty damn good.
The leadership, everything. everything done in that organization over the last year has been everything done in that organization for the last decade, pretty much, has been to set up for the moment that they were going to be put
They were ready to
with
push
the
that button.
opportunity. And yeah, the button was presented to them. They turned all the keys and opened all the doors. They just had to press one last button, and everything exploded.
Yeah.
And it landed with a Super Bowl appearance
And they're
in their home
60
stadium.
minutes away.
And they are
60 minutes
60
away.
minutes away. And the only thing standing in their way,
Patty Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the reigning champions.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so
gonna
much.
be a good one.
Thank you so much for joining the How We Got Here segment. Nico, Michael, the
Thank you
next
so much
segment
for
coming up
having me.
later.
It was fun.
Perfect. Thank you.